President of the United States will make history today. It's not just the extraordinary nature of this presidency, but that he's pushing for changes that are both dramatic and controversial.
Opportunities like this come around maybe once in a generation.
He'll meet with heads of state, members of Congress, and speak to crowds of thousands, making decisions that affect millions here and around the world. Capturing every moment is his chief photographer, Pete Souza.
I think creating a good photographic archive for history is the most important part of my job, creating this archive that will live on.
Now we follow President Obama's photographer in his pursuit of history, meeting those who came before him as they recorded the everyday grit of the American presidency. For 50 years, presidential photographers have covered it all: upheaval, tragedy, and joy, often developing friendships with the presidents they serve.
I think at this point, Pete and I are like an old couple. We sort of know each other, and he's like a member of the family.
For Pete Souza, there's no such thing as a typical day. He works in the West Wing, only steps from the Oval Office. In an average week, Souza will cover the president doing everything, from events on the South Lawn, to speaking at a massive rally, to meeting with the head of state. Today, President Obama will meet with the Prime Minister of Canada. Souza's job is to cover moments we would never see, whether mundane or monumental. His schedule is the president's schedule.
Right now, the schedule looks like it's not too crammed, but then you never know what's going to happen.
Right now, he's headed to the map room on the ground floor of the mansion. 65 years ago, Franklin Roosevelt fought World War II from this room. Today, it's where the President and First Lady wait before an event on the South Lawn. They're joined by Olympic gold medalists Jackie Joyner-Kersee, April Holmes, and others in a celebration of the U.S. Summer Olympic team.
What's so hard about y'all?
This job is all about access and trust. And if you have both of those, hopefully you're gonna make interesting, historic pictures. I think trust began when I covered him for the Chicago Tribune. I spent a lot of time with him during his freshman year in the Senate. And I think both he and Robert Gibbs learned that they could trust me and that they let me photograph in behind-the-scenes situations. Also, anything that I overheard, I didn't share that with the reporter.
It is actually a very difficult thing for anybody who occupies this office to be under that kind of constant observation. It's one of the hardest things to get used to in being president. But when you have somebody like Pete Souza, who you trust, who's a friend, and who is able to purposely fade into the background so that at a certain point you don't notice he's there, then it makes it a little bit easier. Outstanding. So where do you keep your silver medal?
In a soft drawer right now, because we bring it out to the schools and stuff.
Come on.
So it travels a lot. We bring it out to the kids. So.
Even as one event ends, the president's Secretary of State arrives for another. In moments, they will welcome Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper. That means Pete will work with his Canadian counterpart, the Prime Minister's photographer, Jason Ransom.
How you doing, man? Good to see you. Good to see you too. How you doing? Good to see you again. Yep. We met. So you're going to shoot.
I'm going to shoot this arrival of our guy.
Okay.
I'm hiding this. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll grab you.
Before the meetings begin,
Here we go.
Pete gives Jason a tour.
This is the gallery.
The West Wing is decorated with a series of Pete's photos.
This is one that I just shot where Sasha was sneaking up on him at the end of one day that I sort of liked. And then if you come down...
These behind-the-scenes images reveal a glimpse of the president's life that few outside the White House ever get to see.
Everybody enjoys Pete's pictures. The one that is my absolute favorite, though, is the one that Pete took of me blocking Reggie Love's shot playing basketball, which we left up there, I think, a little longer than usual.
Reggie Love is the president's personal aide. He's also a former college basketball star.
Usually there's a rotation, but through a presidential directive, I think that stayed up for 2 or 3 months.
Pete's office used to be the White House barbershop, a place where presidents could get a trim while doing a little business. Today, all that's left is the mirror.
I feel nervous staying down here too long, so let's go back up. I don't ever want to be in my office when, when I should be hanging outside the Oval in case that meeting breaks up.
Even though Pete's desk is fewer than 100 steps from the Oval Office, he's most comfortable when he hovers closer.
There's Mr. Burton. Pete, hello. All-time basketball player.
Just outside the president's office is a waiting area.
Oh, yes, there is.
The on-deck circle for the Oval Office. For Pete, it's also a kind of second office.
Oh, I said that this is a big part of the job, is kind of hanging out, reading.
Minutes later, Pete and Jason head in to cover the private meeting. On any given day at the White House, a number of events are unfolding at the same time. In the diplomatic reception room, First Lady Michelle Obama is greeting guests who will attend a breast cancer awareness speech. White House photographer Samantha Appleton is part of Pete Souza's team, one of 3 staff photographers. Appleton primarily covers the First Lady.
You know, I think we're both learning. I've never done anything quite like this, and she's never had a photographer trailing her all the time.
Your kids, Jake, Rebecca, and Shelby.
People feel an intimacy with her. She's very approachable in that way, and she's a big hugger. People reach out to her in a physical way.
During the Prime Minister's visit outside the Oval Office, an international collection of photographers and reporters are waiting for a quick photo op with the 2 leaders. Another photographer on Souza's staff, Lawrence Jackson, will lead the press pool in.
We're walking around. We're about to go in.
Jackson used to work as an Associated Press wire photographer, whose goal was getting tomorrow's front page shot as quickly as possible. Now, like his boss, Pete Souza, he's making images for history.
It's a different beast. Here, you know, you have time to work on assignment. You have time to get the best product out.
Jackson is a keen observer of how you do that, and one of the best at it is Souza.
Pete's secret is he's, I think, the most competitive guy in the room. He really wants to get the best shot. If he's working in his mode, he doesn't see anything else in the room except for what he's trying to do.
Thanks, guys.
Pete is trying to create the best possible photographic archive of the Obama presidency, a record for the ages. The idea of shooting for history took hold almost 50 years ago, when President Lyndon Johnson hired the first official presidential photographer. Yoichi Okamoto, known as Oki, set the gold standard for presidential photography, and he did it on the strength of his unique access.
Oki didn't work for anyone except the president. He was able to walk into the Oval Office when he thought or knew something was going on and begin photographing. And he would stay as long as he wanted.
Okamoto's images put viewers in the room as moments critical to the country and the world unfolded.
But I think just because of the character that LBJ was, that I don't know that there'll ever be another set of pictures like his.
Expressive, domineering, and oblivious to the camera, LBJ was the ultimate presidential subject. Though his dog Yuki often stole the show.
Yuki was this sort of white mutt whom I think knew that it was the president's dog. And that was the one that Johnson, when he would want to entertain folks that were in the Oval Office, he would start howling, and Yuki would then start howling. And the first time it happened, the agent outside the door almost busted in with his gun drawn. Because if you imagine the president was writhing on the floor of the Oval Office, and he was just howling with the dog.
The Obama's pup, Bo, is the newest first dog. His access to the Oval Office might even be better than Pete's. Along with helping to manage the president's schedule, Brian Mosteller also keeps his drawer stocked with Bo's toys.
That's the longest spot I found you can throw something. We got work to do. We gotta get back to work.
Right now, the president's work is going by motorcade to a rally at the University of Maryland. To a documentary photographer, every presidency has defining stories, and those images are often how we remember a president. For Johnson, it was civil rights in Vietnam. Reagan is forever tied to the end of the Cold War. Clinton had Middle East peace. History has yet to define the Obama administration. Today, he's pursuing a major legislative goal: healthcare reform. With the first vote on the healthcare bill expected in the next 2 months, the president is already working the phones.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United
You know, some of you remember during the campaign, we had a slogan, "Fired up." There we go. Not everybody here knows how this story came about, so I'm going to tell it again.
A fired up story. This will get the crowd going.
Because it bears on healthcare reform.
Pete has covered hundreds of the president's speeches, so the challenge is keeping it fresh.
You know, in a lot of ways, the faces of these people really tell the story. And I think it tells you more about him than a picture of him at the podium.
And if a voice can change a room,